Hi, my dog loving friends. Today's topic, when can I get another dog? I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're watching this tip, you already have a dog, right? But if you don't have a dog and you're thinking about when can I get a dog, I don't have one already, most of these tips will apply to you. But if you already have a dog and you're wondering, when do I get another dog? When can I get another dog? When should I get another dog? This is a question I get asked actually pretty frequently. There's two camps. There is, hey, when can I get a dog? Three camps. When can I get a dog? Camp number two, we were thinking about getting a second dog or third dog or whatever. And then there's camp number three that's like, guess what we did over the weekend? I 100% camps 1 and 2 over camp 3, right? You should never get a dog on the spur of the moment. It's just not a great idea. You need to have some advanced planning, whether it's your first dog, your second dog, your third, whatever. Like, put a little bit of planning into it. But if you're thinking, gosh, when is the right time? The answer to that, I have 4 things that we're going to talk about today. The answer to that is that vague, well, it depends. Because it does depend. It depends on you. It depends on existing dogs in your family. It depends on circumstances. But I want to give you a few things to consider. So, number 1 consideration, I want you to think truly, honestly about why. Why do you want another dog? Do you want another dog for yourself? Do you want another dog for one of the kids in your family? Do you want another dog as a friend for the dog who's already existing in the house? Right? There's no right answer to that question, but I do want you to give it some thought. And here's why. Often, really often, people have very busy lives and they start to feel guilty about their dog's quality of life and the activities that their dog gets to do and how often the dog is home alone. And they think, oh, let me get another dog for the dog, then they'll have a playmate, then they'll have someone to play with, and they'll keep each other busy. And to some degree, that is true, right? To some degree. However, the caveat to that is you need to be very careful that you don't abdicate the raising of the new dog to the existing dog, right? You're unable to have a conversation with your existing dog that says, hey, do you want to be a puppy sitter? Do you want a sibling? You can't have that conversation with them. So you need to kind of look at them and say, is this the kind of dog who's going to welcome having another dog in the house? Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of dogs that prefer to be solo dogs. And then there's a lot of dogs that thrive with another dog in the house. But whether you have a solo dog or a pack mentality kind of dog, it's really important that you don't abdicate the raising. Because if you just get this puppy and you do like the bare minimum with this dog and you allow the dog to teach them everything, the dog is going to teach them everything, good and bad, things you like, things you don't like. And they're going to teach them not our human cultural guidelines, rules, customs. They're going to teach them what? Dog customs. So if that's not something you want your dog to learn, you need to look at that, okay? So you want to figure out what the why is, okay? If you're getting it for a child and they've been campaigning for a while, oh, we're going to, we promise we're going to do all this work. Let's be honest, no, they're not. So getting a dog for the child, like that doesn't work. So just understand, you as the adult in the house are going to be doing the work. Just like if you get a dog for the dog is a child, right? You're getting the dog for a child, but it's a dog child, if that makes sense, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're getting it for the dog or for the child, you as the adult are going to be the one responsible for the raising and the training of this dog. So if you have the time in your life to do this, that's the first thing you want to look at is what is your why, and be really honest. Do you have the time and attention and the patience in your life right now to get a puppy? Number two, if you have a dog in the house, I want you to look at the current age of your dog, right? If you have a puppy, don't get another puppy. Don't get litter mates. Like, that's a whole other story. That's another tip for another day. Don't do it. Don't. Okay? So, but here's generally what happens. Like, you get this puppy and you get to like a year old, year and a half, and you're like, oh, let's get another dog. Your 1.5-year-old dog is smack in the middle of adolescence. There is still a ton of changes that are going on in your dog and development, brain development that are happening with your dog. So they might have a real fun time with a puppy, but I don't think you're going to have a real fun time with 2 teenage dogs, because your puppy turns into an adolescent at about 20 weeks. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm getting a dog, a puppy, and they stay a puppy until they're 9 months or a year. And by the time they come out of puppyhood and go into adolescence, my 1.5-year-old dog will be out of adolescence. Nah, it doesn't work like that. So if you have a 1.5-year-old dog, your puppy, your new puppy, will be an adolescent really quickly, and then you have 2 adolescent dogs. No one wants that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you want to look at, do I have an older dog who has earned the right to relax in their retirement? Right? If you have a 12-year-old dog, they don't want to put up with the shenanigans of a puppy, right? Think of it this way. Okay, think about humans having babies, right? If you have an 18, 19-year-old female who has a baby or younger, right? They're almost babies themselves having a baby. And what's the maturity? Like, are they ready to raise a baby? Probably not so much. Versus, an older mom who has more patience. Okay, cool. But let's go all the way to the end and like grandma. Think about grandma and grandpa. When you go to visit grandma and grandpa and you bring the kids, they love them, they have fun, they have a great time, but they are literally exhausted really quickly. That is what happens with our senior dogs. They might tolerate the puppy, they might like the puppy, but that doesn't mean they want to spend all of their time with the puppy. So if you have an older dog, you might really evaluate, would they welcome this, or would it be more of a nuisance? And a lot of people will say, oh, but a younger dog will breathe new life into the old dog. And some of that's true, right? There's this sweet spot, there's this fine line. And again, it depends on the dog in front of you and your home and your environment and what's going on, whether your dog is happily in retirement and wants to lay on the couch all the time, or a little bored and could use the energy. But that's something that I want you to think about and look at is, would my dog welcome that kind of energy? Because there is a point, quite frankly, there is a point where many, many dogs who have been very tolerant of puppies have liked puppies, they like puppies, then they're tolerant of puppies, and then they're like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't want to mess with your puppies. So, and that's natural for a lot of dogs. So you kind of want to look at where your current dog is. Okay, so that's number 2. Look at the age of your existing dog. Number 3, look at the behaviors of your existing dog. And this generally falls more to the younger dogs, right? When your dog is like a year and a half, 2 years old, when people are like, oh my gosh, I think it's time to get another dog, I always ask them, okay, be really honest about your dog's, your current dog's skill level with training. Meaning, if I ask them to sit, do they sit 100% of the time? Yeah, they kind of like 50% of the time. I'm like, okay. When you ask them to wait, like at the door, or wait for dinner, or stay, or walk nicely on leash, when you evaluate their leash walking, do they walk, are they attentive and with a loose leash? Are they walking with you politely? 100% of the time, 90% of the time, 75, like really evaluate that and make some baseline numbers. Okay, done that, great. Now, take those numbers and cut them in half. What do you have? Wait, what? Cut them in half. Because when you bring a new dog or a new puppy into the house, the majority of your attention is now going to be focused on the new puppy and teaching the new puppy skills. So that lack of attention on your existing dog means that their skills are going to get kind of a little sloppy because you're not really paying attention. Now, if you have a much older dog, their skills are probably going to maintain because they have such a long learning history that they know the gig, they know the deal. Like they're really solid on their behaviors. But if you have that teenage dog who is like a year and a half, 2 years old, maybe 3 years old, that their behaviors are good but not solid, and you divert your attention, they're going to get real sloppy. And those behaviors, if they get real sloppy, if they're like at a 50% and we drop it by half, guess what? You're now at 25% compliance? Well, what if you're less than 50%? Like this is where people will say to me, like, we got this other dog and now my other dog doesn't listen. Right, because they didn't have a really solid set of behaviors before you diverted all your attention to the new dog. So now you have two dogs that don't really listen to you because they're like, we got the keys to the castle. I joke, like I see this a lot with people. Like I will go to their house and they will have two adolescent dogs, and I joke because I'm like, there's no boundaries, there's no self-modulation going on. It's like the prison guards gave the keys to the inmates. Like they're just running amok, and the guardians are like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, this happens all the time because you diverted your attention. They got late, their skills got sloppy, and they learned you don't have time to listen to them, and then you get frustrated with them. So then when you divert your attention over there, the new dog is like, oh, well, you're not going to pay attention to me. Like they divide and conquer you all the time, right? So that's why I'm saying, really, truly take off your rose-colored glasses and look at their behavior. And if you say, well, I don't really know how to assess their behavior, I don't know how to check compliance, here's a simple test. Without a cookie in your hand, no bribes, ask them to sit and count to 30 seconds and see if they sit. If they sit, great, here's your treat. Do that 10 times. If they sit, first request within that, say, 30 seconds, I think it should be faster than that, but I digress, right? You can set that time limit. If they sit 9 out of 10 times, and no cookie in your hand, no bribing, if they sit 9 out of 10 times with one request, you're at 90% compliance because you asked one sit, one butt on the ground. That's 100% compliance. If you ask again, sit, you've asked twice now, and you're going to get a response. You're now 50% compliance. So that's on an individual behavior. And if you do a full set of 10, then you're going to see the behavior on a broader sense. So that's how you can start to really evaluate, what is my dog's compliance level when I ask them for a behavior. So, and fourth and final, the last thing that I want you to consider, and nobody wants to talk about this, but it's a big consideration, is what are the financial considerations of adding an existing dog? Number one, there is the cost of purchasing the additional dog. And we don't like to talk about this, but the truth is, you're buying a dog. Whether you buy the dog from a breeder or whether you buy the dog from a rescue or shelter. People like to say, oh, I adopted this dog. Cool. I adopted this dog from a breeder. It doesn't matter. You are purchasing a dog, right? One is more expensive than the other, but you're still purchasing a dog. Do you have the money to purchase the dog? Yes? Awesome. Great. Do you have the financial resources to feed both of these dogs? Yes. Do you have the financial resources to train? Right? You need to look at your budget and be really honest. Do I have the money for purchase, food, training, vet bills, right? Vet bills, vacations. Am I going to board a dog? This is where people are like, ooh, it's really expensive to board it. It is, right? So vacations, grooming. If you have a dog a breed that requires grooming, is that in your budget? Because that can add up really quickly. That's why I groom my poodles myself, because a good groomer is worth their weight in gold. But when I first got my first poodles, I didn't have the money to do that, so I taught myself how to do it so that I could save some money. So we don't like to talk about the financial considerations, but look at your finances and be really honest. Do you have a savings account for medical expenses? You're going to have to spay or neuter not going to have to, but you're probably going to want to spay or neuter. You need your shots, you need your annual wellness, and that's just your basics. But what if both of your dogs get sick at the same time? Do you have the financial resources to cover that? Or do you have enough money to pay the insurance if you're going to have pet insurance for both of your dogs, or 3 of your dogs, or 4 of your dogs, or however many? Do you have the money to pay those premiums? So look at the finances. And here's the other thing I want you to consider. If you get your dogs, and no one likes to talk about this, but if you get your dogs back to back, like within a year of each other or a year and a half. So my first 2 dogs were a year apart, right? And Maverick was very mature for his age, even though he was an adolescent. He wasn't like your typical adolescent, although I did go through a period of challenging adolescent behavior with both of my dogs. But here's the other thing about getting dogs that are very close in age. All things considered, the normal course of life, they will probably leave you back to back. And no one likes to talk about that. But the reality is, whenever you bring a dog into your life, chances are good that you are going to have to say goodbye to that dog in your life. And that's incredibly difficult, and it's so hard. And if they're really close in age, you're probably going to be doing it pretty close in age. I lost my 2 guys within 2 years of each other. And that really sucked, right? So if there's a bigger spread between the ages, more than likely, again, none of us are guaranteed anything, but more than likely, you're going to be able to spread that grief, right? And not even just spread the grief, but spread the cost of a geriatric dog, right? Because when they get old, you spend more money on them. And so if money is tight and it's hard to afford the vet when they're really healthy, it's going to be really difficult to afford the vet when they're sick. And if you have 2 dogs that are around the same age, that are aging at the same time, that can be difficult for the pocketbook. So look at the financial considerations before you bring another dog in. Now, if every time, I don't care how many dogs you have, every time you want to bring another dog in, you have to go through these 4 things, right? Like, why are we getting the dog? Who is the dog for? No right answer, but be aware of it and don't abdicate the raising. Look at the current ages of your dogs. Is there going to be any dog that is not going to welcome a pup? Is it going to be too tiring for the dogs? So you're going to look at the age of the dogs. You're going to look at the behavior and the skill sets of all of the dogs in your family, and then you're going to look at the financial considerations. If you look at all of those and answer honestly, and you say, yeah, I'm ready, let's bring another dog into our life, awesome. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about how to find things to think about to get the best fit possible when you're bringing another dog into your family. So again, it takes a lot of thought, or it should take a lot of thought and careful planning to get the right, to make sure that bringing another dog into your family, that it's the right time to do it. And now I'm going to, next week, I'm going to talk to you about the right kind of dog to bring in. So I hope this helps you kind of clarify in your own mind if you've been thinking about this or wondering about it. I hope this gives you some food for thought to think about. When is a good time? Are we ready about bringing another dog into your life, right? So recap really quick. Why? Who's it for? Check the ages of your current dogs, look at the behavior, and consider your financial considerations. Okay? All right. That's it for today. I hope you always have a dog to love, and I'll catch you next time.